you've mentioned, the time of your life where, when you had to sort of, well, not compete, but be aware of who your great grandfather is. So, I'm interested how is this moment of your life for you? Like, were you influenced by who he was? Were you sort of, well, not afraid, but sort of, as you've mentioned, intimidated by it? Was it a burden to be, yeah, to be his great grandson?
Okay, how do I even answer that one? Like all kids, I had no clue, and I didn't care.
Yeah,
right?
Nice. Yeah.
As an example, my kids, I take them sometimes to the shows with me. They ask me, like, why does anybody want to listen to you? Right? When you're much younger, you get this blissful bubble around you that, and it's totally normal. It's certainly all right. Yeah, I grew up with like a 600 book library on my ancestry. I was very aware of my ancestry. I didn't care, right? I mean, it was sort of a normal thing. That's just what it was. Only later did I find out that some of my friends weren't allowed to come to my house because we had like nudes. I'm like, well, what do you mean? In my living room, we had a 7-foot tall nude sculpture of my great grandmother. My friends would say, hey, I said, no. But it's sort of normal. That was just the way it was, right? I mean, if we go visit somewhere, it's like we got to go see the Picassos, and we're not talking about the paintings, right? Yeah. Like all these families just kind of hang out together. Yeah. So I was in this bubble of only a little later that I realized, not everybody gets this sort of treatment. And that really opened up my eyes to the world and made me really focus outward. So for me, my great grandfather wasn't intimidating. Impressive, like highly accomplished, like it casts a great shadow. But for me, hearing the stories of how he was and what he was, and the things that he did in life, and the charitableness and the valor, like the Franco-Prussian War, he fought, and he was he got medals for it, like the histories and the stories, and I got the feel of who he truly was. As an example, I love going to museums and not telling anybody I'm going. Love it. And then I follow the docents around to listen to the stories they have, to see what they're telling. Now, a few times, each time, I sit there and I kind of giggle because I know where that story comes from and how, and I know what parts are not really like it's a little. It's like, well, sort of, right? But you know what? It's not my gig. It's not that they're happy to do it. People are very happy to hear. All right, go for it, right? And it's so for me, I love to see that there's still that much appreciation. But what always makes me kind of shake my head is that a lot of these guys are put on these pedestals as these paragons of virtue and art. And if you went to my great grandfather's studio when he was in Paris, first you're going to a wild part of town, like Moulin Rouge is not too far away, right? I mean, it's sort of crazy. One of his favorite models, named Nini Lopez, was the founder of the female comedy, like French women comics. It was one of their main. So she was a funny girl, right? One of his favorite models. So traditionally at that time, when you went to a painter, you'd go into this dark study with books and carpets and everything, and it's very somebody will show you in, and they have the one easel out here, and it's covered in the cloth, and you go in to view your painting, and the artist will come out beautifully dressed with like the whole thing, right? And the puffy shirt and whatever, maybe the hat, right? And come up and he says, well, this, and he uncovers it once, is your painting, right? Behold. And then off you go, and you're like, beautiful, that's exactly what I want. Right now, if you go to my great grandfather's studio, especially, but like you go in there, you're through crowds. There's vendors, there's music, there's laughing, there's jugglers, there's women of ill repute over here, right? The entire thing, and you go up the stairs, and you almost have to push open the door to his place, and there's canvases and bits and bobs and pieces and things all over the place, right? And you come around the corner and you go into like the main sort of sitting and painting area, and maybe a nude person runs away half covered in the sheet, and he's sitting there with a glass of wine, a paintbrush, and a cigarette, right? And there's paint splattered everywhere, and there's half done. There's paintings everywhere. Like the entire thing, they were about life. They were us. They were us. They absolutely were. And they didn't take it so seriously. It wasn't like the establishment at that time had locked it up so hard. You had to be Barbizon. You had to be a realist. You have to be a you had to be classic. You had to, like, all your paintings had to be, if you're doing a nude, it has to be like a mythology. It has to be Diana. It has to be Venus. It has to be religious. It has to be whichever. And these guys got together and drank a little bit too much absinthe and decided, you know what? I'm going to start shading stuff with blue. And the entire society of art lost their freaking minds. They're like, how dare you? The very first impressionistic art showing was done in a photography studio. Like, it's astounding. And for me and for these guys, what I was saying is that they're put on such high pedestals, but I get to hear the stories of how human they were and how flawed in some ways. And like, I especially love going to the Picasso Museum and listening to what people have to say about him, because I talked to his descendants, and they're like, Anyway, it's again, I'm very honored to be in the position I am, and I'm very honored to be able to share that.
Wow, that was, with everything that you said, you literally just transferred me to that time, and I had such a, great. I imagined this so well. It was. I got chills. That was amazing, by the way. That's fantastic. I do think that, or at least what really fascinated me in Impressionists was exactly that, that they were not pretentious, they were not pompous, they just wanted to enjoy life and just, showcase, I guess, the world through their eyes. And I mean, that's my reading, obviously. As you mentioned, that way better than, most of the people, but how I felt it.
Like I said, they were just people. Don't get me wrong. A little bit later, a few of them got a bit pompous, but that happens. I mean, when you start, you get to this big, huge thing, and right. But for me, it's kind of almost the same story. My family, when we moved to Canada, my father already spent everything my great grandfather left. So we started from scratch. I started from scratch, and to be able to experience and to go, and I love that I've had very humbling moments in life, and I've had astounding moments in life, but everybody, I think, has that bright spark within them that can lead to that sort of thing. And it goes back to, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And the only fear you should have, rejection shouldn't be a fear. You'll never know. And I have a tendency to take those weird paths and end up in very strange situations, right? That later on turn into great stories, but at the time sometimes aren't so great, that sort of thing.